We've been moving farther north in southeast Alaska over the past week and have had a chance to navigate amongst icebergs and to try to see a couple of tidewater glaciers. Ice is constantly breaking off of the glaciers where they meet the ocean, so-called calving, and the ice flows change daily. We tried to get all the way to LeConte Glacier, but the ice was just too thick, so we explored the more dense sections of ice in a small, hard-bottom inflatable boat. Even in the small boat, we couldn't get all the way to the face of the glacier, but we did manage to see and get close to a couple of very large icebergs. The tidewater glaciers in southeast Alaska cut very deep channels through the rock, which means that the depth of the water in the approach arms drops steeply from land and anchorages are very poor if they exist at all. Tracy Arm Cove is the closest anchorage with shallow enough water and good holding, and we staged there the night before exploring Endicot Arm, Dawes Glacier, and then entering Ford's Terror. Jen was even brave enough to put on a dry suit and go for a sunrise paddle. We're in front of Dawes Glacier. The other boats that we're with decided to go pick through the ice a little bit further up, but we decided just to kind of hang out here. It looks a little sketchy and I don't really feel like breaking the boat.
Actually, it doesn't look that bad right now, but it moves around pretty quickly. So the spot just opened up and I'm thinking if we tried to get in, we could just as easily move iceberg ease in the way and get us trapped in there before we'd be able to get back out.
One of the interesting things about seeing the ice flows from the glaciers up close is the amount of wildlife that will rest on the temporary floating islands. We saw bald eagles in the icebergs on the way to LeConte Glacier, and on the ice floes here by Dawes, the seals really seem to be having fun in the ice. Going into Ford's Terror later tonight, and we have to go into Ford's Terror at high slack, so got a few hours to kill, so we're just gonna kind of hang out down here and then slowly head back up Endicot Arm towards Forks Terror. And Forks Terror is going to be a pretty spectacular anchorage for a couple of nights, and then we're heading into Juneau. Tonight. This is our crew right here. We're just kind of in this holding pattern at the entrance to Forks Terror. It's almost high slack tide, and we are going to be going up here in the rocks and then through this little corner right here. And this is the area that is kind of hard to negotiate. You can only get through at high slack. If you don't go through at high slack, there can be 3-foot rapids, and it's pretty treacherous. The guidance we got from the group from Slowboat with whom we are traveling is to line up on a course between the waterfall outside the entrance and the center of the entrance channel, which puts us on a course across a charted rock that is either very poorly positioned on the chart or simply doesn't exist. Passing the charted rock, we've got 17 feet. There appears to be no rock at all on the bottom.
Rhapsody's through, nice and easy. Mid-channel looks best.
Images and video don't do justice to the scale of this place. It's not even possible to fly our little drone high enough to capture all of it. The granite walls rise sharply to heights of over a mile, and water seems to cascade down throughout the valleys of Forks Terror. We had a full day inside Forks Terror as we were planning on leaving on the high tide early the following morning, so taking advantage of a good weather forecast for the morning, we all hopped in our dinghies and went out to explore. Being able to look up from the small boats at huge granite cliffs and waterfalls running down from high up really allowed us to take in the enormous scale of the landscape. In a lot of ways, it seems like cruising through a flooded version of Yosemite Valley in a boat. went out to look at the rapids at the narrow part of the Ford's Terror entrance, but there was a pretty small tidal exchange the day that we were there, and it looked safe enough to go through in the relatively powerful small boats. After a few laps around an iceberg that had floated up the channel, we headed back upstream through the Narrows.
Alright, now they're all going back
To cap off our day, while eating dinner in the pilot house, a squall blew through the anchorage, gusting to 30 knots, and put us into a fire drill mode to get our dinghy and paddleboards put away in case we had to pull and reset the anchor if it were to drag.
Freezing.
Oh man, we were sitting there having a nice dinner and suddenly this came in. Rain, wind, anchor watch was going off, so we're just getting prepared in case we have to move the boat.
Daddy, there was like a big fog thing. So I had to wipe it off so you will have a little bit of my fingers rubbing on the screen in this video. Right on the side of your boat. Guys, there's a rainbow. See a beautiful rainbow coming out of the trees. And it's fading away.
So, to close out this video log that highlights waterfalls and glaciers and ice, YouTube doesn't allow the use of copyrighted music, or I'd likely be leaning towards loads of Grateful Dead songs for soundtracks for these videos. The next best thing, well maybe not exactly, but it's what we've got to use for now, royalty-free music from the good old internet. I found this song that might be a little over the top dramatic, but it actually is pretty spot on in conveying the feeling one gets from the enormity and beauty of Southeast Alaska.
Frozen ice, days of endless light, wind that's blowing bold, the sight of buried gold, a field of evergreen, water so serene, eagles flying high over everything. So massive, there's no getting past them. Wide open spaces you can't outlast. Alaska, you can't outlast.
Thanks for watching Icebergs and Waterfalls. See you next time.